Hey guys, Mike here. Welcome to the live video. Finally. Okay, so I apologize. I was supposed to make this live stream video a couple of days ago on Tuesday, which I announced. But I wasn't able to do that because I ran into an issue. Where's that cable? I don't have it here, but I ran into some technical issues with my cable, my HDMI port, and I have since replaced it. So that's why I'm able to do this video now. And again, it's taking long. And I also apologize I didn't let you know what time it would be. That's because I didn't know myself. But it's Sunday, I find myself home, and that's why I'm making this live stream now. Anyway, the video I wanted to do today, I want to talk about the numbers for the new airplane. If you're new to the channel, so I've got like 4 windows on my screen, by the way, and I hope you are seeing the one that I'm showing you here. But anyway, I wanted to talk about the numbers for the new plane. If you are new to the channel, just say hey, what's up guys? Just say hey, tell me where you're streaming from. And myself, my name is Mike. I am the guy behind all this videos that you've been watching on Mojo Grip. And recently I announced that I'm building my own airplane. And so this is one of the videos that I'll be making, hopefully many more videos to come regarding that airplane. And also with the airplane build, I also have a GoFundMe page. Guys, I do need your help to build this thing out. And if you are new to the channel and you don't know about the GoFundMe, I have a link in the description so you can check that out. As a matter of fact, I'll give you some time while I set myself up. Go check out the GoFundMe and then come back to the live stream. And while you're doing that, I'll just rearrange my screen here and say hi to everybody. Hey guys, thank you so much for tuning in. And for those of you who are just checking out the GoFundMe page, basically what I'm raising the money for is my build assist, and also my plan is to film and document the entire build process and upload those videos on YouTube for you guys. So I'm also raising money for that. Okay, and speaking of build assist, that's one of the costs or the numbers that we're going to talk about on this live stream. And if you're new to experimental airplanes, there are different ways that you can go about building your airplane. Generally, people actually just get kits and then you can just build it out in your garage, hoping you have the right tools and the right space. So for me, I'm not doing that. I'm going through the build assist one because that's one way I was able to convince my wife to allow us to do this. But also, being my first airplane, I prefer to have professionals, people who know how to build airplanes, actually walk us through the entire process. So that's why we're going through the build assist program, which is an additional cost to the kit. But anyway, you guys check that out. Another way you can support the build is just become a Mojo Grip MVP, which I also have a link below. And so while you're doing that, I'm just gonna say hi to everybody, and please let me know if you can hear me. I've spent hours, guys, setting all of this stuff up with the camera, and if you see me looking back and forth, it's because I have my screen here in front of me and my camera is right here to the side. So let me just say hi to everybody, man. Big Steve, thank you. Hey man. Nadar, hey, what's up? Anthony, what's up, man? Chris Bow, appreciate you tuning in. Corey, thank you for tuning in from Florida. Joseph from Arkansas. Oh, Joseph, you sent me an email. You would have to resend if you're waiting for the follow-up. Honestly, I don't recall, but appreciate you tuning in, man. Raymond, thank you for tuning in. Matt, thanks for tuning in. Wayne Reynolds, appreciate you tuning in from Dallas, Texas. Okay, so guys, we're gonna get into the numbers, and I'm gonna share my screen with you. And please, anytime during this whole video, I want you to ask questions. One of the reasons why I'm actually doing this live is because since I made the announcement, a few people have emailed me or even met me in person at Oshkosh, and there's been a lot of questions regarding numbers. So this being part of the process, the build process, I want to go over it with you guys. And so ask the questions while I'm here live, and I'll try to cover as much as I can. Okay, so to go through it, let me just share my screen with you guys. Give me 1 second. Okay, let's do this transition. Boom. Can you see a white screen, a PDF file that says Sling TSi? Please just let me know in the comments. Can you see a divided screen? Please let me know if you can see that screen or not. Can everybody see a split screen in front of them? Hey, Jason Page, appreciate you tuning in from Middle Georgia. Okay, so this is the numbers that we're gonna go through today, guys, and I'll just scroll up and down. So first thing, if you ever decide to build an airplane on your own, to calculate your costs, okay, so the first thing you have is your kit. You have to buy a kit for the airplane. And so all of this right here, all of this whole section is what your kit is consisted of. So you have your empennage, your wing kit, your fuselage, your undercarriage, canopy, instrument, and so on and so forth. So you have to buy a kit for the airplane first, and then once you buy your kit, you also probably have to get tools, and I'm assuming your kit will come with a manual and instructions to build the airplane. And so, but you have to get your own tools. But the kit first, and then engine. You need a power plant for your airplane, and then you need your prop, your propeller, and then you need, depending on what option. So if you're building a VFR, IFR airplane, you need avionics. So different options, and we'll go through all of that. But first, let's go through. So say for example, your empennage kit, and also I should say disclaimer, all the numbers I'm sharing here today is particularly on the Sling TSi, which is the aircraft that I'm building. But the thing is, whatever I share with you here today, you can always, it's going to be a similar process if you build any other kit. Okay, it's going to be a similar process. You have to buy a kit, you have to get an engine, and so on. So, but the numbers today is particular for the Sling. Okay, so let's get into it. So your empennage kit, if you don't know, again, this is from my non-pilot friends. If you're a pilot, you obviously know what parts these are. Empennage is basically your tail, the tail of the aircraft, which would include, your rudder, the elevators, all that stuff in the back of the airplane. That's what your empennage is. Your wing kit, that's your wings, and generally speaking, also your fuel tanks is going to be in the wings. Your ailerons, your flaps is going to be in the wings. So that's your wing kit. Your fuselage is the main body frame of the airplane. So basically, if you were to take everything else off, the wing, the back, the middle, think of the fuselage as the middle section of the airplane. So that's your fuselage, and then your undercarriage, that would include your landing gear, tires, wheels, maybe lights, and then canopy, instrument panel, and so on. So your canopy, basically your doors. For this plane, the TSi in particular, you have a wing door, and so that's what's included as canopy. Also is the screen in front of basically what you consider your windshield in a car. So that's what that is. So you see the price here. Now another thing is, when you're building an experimental airplane, the good thing is, see all of this right here, you don't have to like pay everything once, right? So because you're building it yourself. So say for example, you've only got the money to get your wing kit and also the time. Remember, you have to put time to do this. So you can get your wings and just build that. Okay, take your time, build your wings, put it to one side, order your fuselage kit, and you can build that separately. and build your empennage. So that's the good thing about going the experimental route, is that you can take your time and you can build it however best serves you. But obviously you save money if you buy the entire thing together, which is, if you see here, it says that you save about $2,000 if you buy the whole kit together. All right, so that's the first section, and I'll talk a little bit more on that. But first, let me see if there's any questions, guys. I'm switching between 4 different screens, so bear with me. Oh man, a lot more people came in. Hey guys, thank you all for tuning in. Again, if this is your first time, my name is Mike. Thank you all for tuning into the live stream. I have my GoFundMe link in the description, and also MVP members link if you want to support the channel. That's another way to support the channel. Let me see if there's any question here so far. Mr. Chambers, is there any nice kits for 20K to 40K range? I will talk about that later in the video, and the answer is yes. Saberwing, for example, is a good kit in that price range. I believe the Saberwing kit is like $28,000, and you can have a complete airplane around 45-50 grand. Okay, so let me get back into this. So let's get back into the numbers, guys. So this is basically all of your kit for the Sling TSi. And you see here, it tells you the approximate amount of hours that you need to build it is 1,400 hours, which is also one of the reasons why I chose this airplane. Generally, depending on which kit you get, you're going to spend a lot of time, thousands of hours building the airplane out. And the kit for the Sling TSi, a 4-seater, I think 1,400 hours is a pretty good amount of time to build one out. Okay, and then you can, an option for this or any other kit you get is you have a quick build option. So quick build, for those who may not know, a quick build is basically, instead of buying kits and putting all the stuff and rivets and screws together, with a quick build you basically have all the minute stuff like riveting and screws, even parts of the airplane. Say your wings, for example, say your wings is made up of 3 or 4 different parts. Rather than you putting all that 3-4 different parts together, they would put it together for you in the factory and then send it to you. So that's what a quick build is. It basically helps saves, it saves you some of the time you would spend, building different parts of the airplane. And according to this, you get to save about 500 hours if you spend on the quick build, which will cost you about 23 grand. All right, now, so we've went through the main kit, which is everything at this top table. Now let's talk about your options. Again, when you buy a kit, you also have to, the next thing you would think of when you're building your own airplane is, what engine do you want to fly behind? And for this particular airplane, the Sling TSi, it's built around a Rotax 915 engine, which is this right here. And the cost for that is around $38,000. Let me make sure I'm highlighting the right thing. Okay, so let's talk about that first, your engine. So another good thing about going experimental is that technically you don't have to have whatever engine that the airframe is built around. You can always choose a different power plant if you want to. So that's one of the freedoms you get with experimental. You can't really do that with a certified airplane, but with experimental you can do that. So for example, the Sling TSi is built around a Rotax 915, but guess what? If you wanted to use a different engine, you can use whatever engine you want, as long as you make sure that the power to weight ratio is good for your airframe and you do the right calculation. You're not getting an engine where your airplane is underpowered or overpowered. So for safety reasons, good to do your research first on that front. But let's talk about the Rotax 915, which is one of the big costs of your kit or your airplane components, right? So this thing is $38,000. As a matter of fact, for me, one of the main reasons why I chose to build a Sling TSi is particularly because of the Rotax 915. Now, don't quote me on this, but I personally believe that right now this is the most technologically advanced single engine in not single engine for single for piston engine aircraft in civil aviation. And I'll tell you the reason why. So if you think of any of the traditional airplanes that we have, from the Cessnas, Pipers, Moonies, even Cirrus, even the Cirruses, which is like the premium of the premium. Okay, the piston engines in those aircraft are either Lycoming or Continental, and to me, the technology in those engines are still like aged, really, really old. And what you get with a Rotax 915, it's like you get modern technology because the engine has a FADEC system, and also you get redundancy with the engine. If you're not familiar with the FADEC system, I actually just did a list video recently kind of going through that. So a FADEC is basically, you have, how do I say this? You have an electronic system that controls a lot of the engine tasks for you. So normally, again, in a traditional single engine aircraft, as a pilot, you have to watch and manage your engine while you're flying. That's part of the task of being a pilot. You have to check your fuel temperatures. You have to check what's the word I'm thinking of? So you check your fuel usage, you check your temperatures, you check your mags, a bunch of stuff that you need to check. Your RPMs also, depending on what altitude, what phase of your flight, you have to manage all these things. And also your fuel flow, for example, for if you're whichever aircraft you're flying, you want to fly as economically as possible. So your fuel flow is one of the important things that you're gonna check or plan your trip on. And with the 915, all of that is done for you. You don't have to lift a finger doing any of that. So that's why I think it's one of the most technologically advanced, if not the most advanced engine in civil aviation right now. Just my opinion, okay? And some people may bark at the price of it, but I think for what you're getting, I think you're getting a pretty good deal with this engine. And then the next thing you would have to get is this, your prop. Okay, so you need an engine and then you need a propeller. Being an experimental, you can do whatever you want. You can buy whichever prop that you want to fit in the engine, fit with the engine, and get you the best performance. Okay, and on that note, let me check the. Let me move my screen again and check the questions here. Yes, tech guy, I'm talking about the advantages of having a FADEC system in your engine. Okay, so speaking of the propeller, the one that the Sling TSi uses is an Airmaster constant speed prop. So let's talk about your prop. If you, again, in civil aviation or with a single engine airplane, you have different props that you can get. You can get a constant speed, and you can get what's called a fixed pitch. So with a fixed pitch, which you'll find in a lot of lighter or you can say light sport airplanes, a fixed pitch basically, let me use this pen as an example. So if you see, I wish I can like show pictures as I'm doing this, but this is live stream, I can't edit stuff out. But let's say this is your propeller blade, right? So with your propeller blade, with a fixed pitch, it's just fixed forever. You can't do anything with it. So whatever RPMs you're flying, it's just, that's it. But with a constant speed prop, what could happen is you can change the angle of your blade to different angles, and you change it basically in the cockpit, and you change it to get better performance or whatever phase of flight that you're in. That's what that's for. And you can think of it as it's it's similar as to if you were driving a manual gear car. You know how you can control your engine speed by shifting gears? That's similar to what a constant speed propeller is. And traditionally, again, if you look at a lot of the older manufacturers, even the Diamond Star, which to me, Diamond Stars make pretty modern airplanes, and I trained in one. In the DA40, for example, when I trained, what you have in the cockpit, you have your power lever, you have your propeller lever, and then you have your mixture lever. So the propeller lever that's what you use. It's basically something you move back and forth, and that's what you use to change the angle or the blade angle for your propeller. But with an Airmaster constant speed prop, just like with the Rotax engine, all that work is done for you. Okay, so as a pilot, you have less task, and the way it works. And I don't know if you're new to the channel, you should go check out the flight video I did on the Sling TSi. I flew it earlier this year, and I try to get as much information through that flight video. And through that entire flight, I didn't have to touch one lever to change my prop angle. All you do is you have a switch in the in your cockpit that you just switch. So say you're about to take off. Instead of pulling the prop lever to full power or full, you just switch to takeoff. All right, on your panel, and that's it. There's a system that does all the angle changing for you. So you just switch to takeoff, and boom, you're good to go. Just focus on flying the airplane. Same thing, you take off, and now you're climbing. When you're climbing, you take that same switch, switch it up to climb, automatically done. When you set your cruise, you are at the altitude where most of your trip is going to happen. You take that switch again, you switch it to cruise, and boom, automatically done. So that's what you get with an Airmaster propeller, and the price on that is $11,500. Again, it's not your standard prop because you get that electric system doing all the work for you. Okay, so to me, these are the three main components that you have to get with your airplane build, which is your kit, your engine, and your propeller. Once you have those three main stuff, you're pretty much almost at the finish line. Now, let's talk about some of the options that you may consider. Okay, so just like in any other airplane, you have different stuff that you want to consider. So I'll take this for example. With the Sling TSi, you have long range tanks. So the standard tanks, fuel tanks to be more specific, the standard tanks can get you 700-800 miles, which is, for me, it's plenty. That's more than enough for my missions. Okay, but if you get the long range tanks, you get an additional 22 gallons of fuel, which can take you further. So the cost for that, it says here $4,500. But here's the thing with getting additional tanks or getting anything additional, just understand that whenever you're putting any new options on your airplane, you also not only think of the upfront costs to add that feature, but also the maintenance costs. So a long range tank, for example, will also cost you some money to maintain it. And from what I know, there's an additional task for you to use it. So just like you have your fuel, the fuel switch in the cockpit, you'd have something similar for your additional tanks. So instead of switching between one wing to another, then you have another switch for your long range tank. So I decided not to go with this option here because I didn't want to deal with the maintenance and the additional task, and I saved some money. Okay, so that's one thing you can add. And before I move to the other options, I will check. Oops, let's put that back on. Let's check in the comments here. All right, so if you're just joining the live stream, Appreciate you guys tuning in. Appreciate Keisha Parker. Like and subscribe, everyone. Thanks, Keisha. Okay, good. I'm just gonna go through the comments, guys, and see if there's any questions so I can answer them. Hey, Killian John, appreciate you tuning in from Tanzania, man. Matt, thank you. Joseph, thank you. All right, let's see. Any questions? Ed Nesbitt says, these numbers don't matter. It's always substantially more. I don't know about that. These are the numbers that I'm working with, and I'm pretty sure they're very accurate so far. Now, I don't know. I haven't started the build yet, but so far these are the numbers that I'm working with. I don't know what Ed's experience has been, but he swears that these are going to change. I'm not forecasting that these numbers would change for me, but right now these are the numbers I have. And again, this is also one of the things that if you decide to build on your own, you may incur some additional costs. I don't know those costs. Say for example, I mentioned in the beginning that if you decide to buy your kit, or if you decide to buy a component out of the kit, one thing you have to consider is your shipping costs. So rather than paying one shipping cost for your entire kit, if you buy one component and another component, you also have to pay shipping each time that you do that. So that could be an additional cost, and your tools also can be an additional cost. C172 Pilot Dude, do they produce an RG version? I have asked. That's one of the questions I asked early on. No, TAV does not produce. There's no retractable landing gear for the Sling TSi. I don't think there's ever going to be one. From a cost perspective and also from safety perspective. But I do know that TAF is coming out with a new high-wing version for the Sling TSi. So, sorry, there's not going to be a retractable landing gear for this airplane. Trent Epperson, sorry for butchering your name. Did you consider building the kit in Oklahoma City versus California? Yes, I did. I talked to the guy at OKC. Mike is the guy who runs that workshop there. I did, and I ended up in California for different reasons, which I'll talk about more also. Because when you think about it, actually, let's talk about it right now. So, guys, I'm based in Georgia. That's where I am, and I'm going to build the airplane in California, which is a few thousand miles away. And the reason why I stuck to California, particularly in Torrance, is one, my travel costs. Okay, Oklahoma City is probably 1,000 miles, and to get on a commercial flight, I'm thinking may cost decently less than, say, traveling to California. But also, while I'm out there in OKC, which I don't particularly know anyone yet, except for maybe people at the workshop that I'll be working with, but I also have to think of my accommodation. I need a place to stay, so hotel fees, if I need a car, because my plan with going out to California is I'm gonna get a place to stay there. I'm gonna get probably a rental car if I need to move around. So all those additional costs is what I looked at and why I chose California. And the benefit of California is I have friends and family out there, so automatically I am eliminating some of the costs because I can probably try to find somebody who will loan me their car or who will let me stay with them for a couple of days while I'm out there. So that's one of the reasons why I decided to go build out in California. I hope that answers the question. Boom. Guys, this is a lot here. Let me get back. I tell you what, let me get back and finish the numbers, and then I'll just spend the rest of the time to answer all the questions. Okay, so let's get back to this screen. I hope you're still seeing the PDF file on my screen. Okay, so back to your options. So we've talked about the cost of your kit, your engine, your prop, and if you want long range tanks, you can add those. And then this is another important option that I'm going to have, which is a parachute, which costs an additional 11 grand. So parachutes in single engine airplanes was not always a thing. As a matter of fact, we should raise a glass up to Cirrus. Cirrus Aircraft, I think, is one of the first companies to commercialize this safety feature, and it's a great safety feature. All right, a parachute on the airplane, basically, in case of an emergency where you don't have control of the aircraft anymore, you can just pull a tab or something in the cockpit, and hopefully your parachute comes off, and you're able to land more safer than you would if the airplane just fell out from the sky. Okay, and the parachute, now with Cirrus aircraft, for example, all of their models come standard with a parachute system. And the great thing with, again, going experimental is that you can add one yourself. So take certified airplanes, for example. If you were to spend $500,000 buying a Diamond Star or a Cessna 172 or 182, you don't get a parachute system. Now, you don't necessarily need one. It's just an additional safety feature that you should have. As for me, talking to my wife, this was one of the what's the word I'm looking for? This was one of the deal breakers. I was gonna go through the build assist and also get a parachute. So for her peace of mind, also, that's one of the reasons why I'm getting one. And it's a great feature to have. It's better to have it than not. But you should consider that if you pay for one, it's gonna cost you 11 grand. But also, I believe you have to maintain it. Just like you go for checkups for your car, you also have to do a checkup for the parachute. Remember I mentioned in the beginning that whatever feature or options you add to your airplane, you also have to consider the cost to maintain it. So having a parachute on board, it's not legal or illegal, but you owe it to yourself to at least have it checked every so often to make sure that everything is good there. That way, God forbid, if you ever need it, it's good to go. So you have to think of that cost, which is the cost to have it and the cost to maintain it. And also, more than likely, with a parachute on board, you're also giving up some of your useful load that you would rather use for, say, fuel or to carry extra load in the airplane. So you have to compensate for that as well. Okay, so other options, your electric switches, brakes, leather and seating. So here's another thing. It's cosmetic stuff, but you don't have to have leather seating. Obviously, if you're building out an airplane, you can always get whatever you like or the most affordable option. But if you want leather seating for this airplane from the factory, it's gonna cost you $1,350. So $1,350, if I'm reading that correctly. Now, again, it being an experimental, you don't always have to go with the factory. You can always get your own leather or your own seating or chairs anywhere else, and just make sure it's fitted right to the aircraft. But that's an option you can get. And then one of the other big expense you're gonna have is this, guys, your avionics. So avionics is outside of your kit and your engine. Avionics is also one of the big expense that you're going to have. Now, if you're building a VFR airplane, VFR means you don't need the instrument, or you don't depend on an instrument to fly. VFR basically is you can look outside and see that things are good and you're good to go. So you have basic avionics for a VFR airplane, and that's not going to cost you much. But if you're building an IFR platform, that's gonna cost you a lot more. So say for example, with the Sling TSi or any experimental aircraft out there, you can fit. There's a lot of options you can think of when it comes to avionics. As a matter of fact, you can use iPad. Get an iPad, get the right antennas and the right radio stuff in your airplane, and you should be good to go with an iPad, or get ForeFlight. You should be good to go. So those are much more affordable ways to have avionics in your airplane, as long as you adhere to the ADS-B rule that's coming in 2020. So you have to have ADS-B out if you're operating in certain airspaces. So that's another cost you need to consider. But say for an IFR panel, if you were to choose any of the two big players, which is Garmin and Dynon, you're looking at 30 to 50 grand for your avionics package. If you want to get full IFR, that's about how much you're looking to spend. And guess what? Your kit is just about the same thing. So this is all of this options here. You know, you have to, you can pick and choose, and you don't have to go with any one that you can't afford or you don't like. But I can tell you right now, the big three options that you're going to spend on is your avionics, your engine, and then your I believe the propeller is the other big. Now, so this is basically all of the numbers, and the last cost that you're going to have outside of your kit, engine, prop, avionics, is the cost to build. Okay, so if you're going the experimental route, one of the things you consider is the time is going to take you to build your airplane. All right, cost to build is not just monetary. You have to think, how much time am I going to spend on this? So 1,400 hours is the average recommended hours to build out a Sling TSi. Let's assume that you're making $50 an hour. Okay, if you multiply 50 times 1,400, which I'll do with my calculator right now. So if you multiply 50 1,400, that means you're gonna spend about 70 grand to build your airplane if you build it on your own. Okay, that's the cost if you calculate it by time. But if you go through the build assist, which is another option, you're going to spend around the same thing. As a matter of fact, if you look at this green tab here, it says build assist from the quick build. You're looking at an additional cost. So build assist here, this is the cost for build assist. 50 grand. Okay, so if you were to build out the airplane on your own, you can take your time with it. You know, people spend anywhere from 2 years to 10 years building out their airplane. I've met people who have spent that much time building out, but I believe the average it takes to build an experimental, specifically a four-seater, say a Vance RV, or this Vance RV would definitely take you double the time it takes to build this. And you can spend up to 5 years on average, 3 to 5 years on average, to build one out if you were to do it on your own. So it's either you spend the money now or later. And for me, I'm going through the build assist program, which again is what I'm trying to raise some money for through GoFundMe. So you guys, I do need your help and support for that. All right, so if you look at all of this additional options that you get, you have, we've talked about your engine, your prop. Now, your light package, you don't have to be fancy with the lights in and outside of the airplane. But if you get LED lights, that's going to cost you a few $1,000s. Just make sure you get something from a reputable company or reliable brand, because I've heard some pretty bad stories of LEDs that just, or lights for airplane that just goes out. So that's one thing you're going to spend money on. Your firewall forward, we've talked about leather. Actually good, I'm glad. So if you look at this, I mentioned if you were to build an IFR platform, you're looking at about 47,500 if you go with a Garmin with all this instruments on it, the G3X Touch, and having your radios and all of that. Okay, so, and then this is the last additional cost. Transport to flight, your test flights. At the end of the day, another thing you're gonna consider also is once you're done building your airplane, most people who go through the experimental route, they're their own test pilot. So you can always test your own airplane and make sure all the stuff, the control surfaces, everything is doing what it's supposed to do. But here's the thing. And let me switch my screen. Let me switch my screen back so you can see. I'll switch this back. So when you go through experimental, and I'll for people who are not able to catch this live video, I'm gonna make another video where I'm gonna break all of this down in simpler terms in a shorter form. But all of these costs is what you'll consider, but also I think you should approach this from a safety standpoint, and which is what I'm doing. Safety is why I'm using the build assist. Safety is why I'm getting features like a parachute. But safety, another safety feature I'm doing is I'm not gonna be test flying my own airplane once it's done. I'm gonna hire a professional to do that for me. Now, again, you don't have to do that, but stats have shown when you think of the safety record in accident rates, when it comes to certified airplanes and experimental, you have a lot more accidents and crashes with experimental airplanes. Now, part of that is because one, you have a single person building out the entire airplane themselves, but also you've had situations where a person doesn't even make it past the first flight. And it's unfortunate that those events happen, but there's been accidents and crashes that happen on the first flight. And sadly, some of them have been fatal. So from a safety standpoint, here's another cost you should consider is, do I want to test flight my own airplane? Or do I want to hire somebody who is well versed with doing this kind of stuff to do it for me and just give me all the numbers and whatever is needed to be corrected? So those are all of the things to consider, but I do encourage you, if you ever go this route, is to always think safety first. All right, so that said, now let's answer some questions. I hope, honestly, that you guys get something from this, because this is part of the process. The reason why I'm sharing these numbers with you guys is so you can follow along. And once we get started on the build also, I don't know if I'll be doing more live videos then, but I'll definitely have videos up for you guys. But let's look at questions here. Okay. Okay, Arian 789 from St. Lucia. Appreciate you tuning in. Okay, good question. So Arian 789 asks, are there any advantages other than price and flexibility in parts to buying an experimental as opposed to a certified airplane? Maybe insurance and maintenance. Actually, those two are like opposites. So when it comes to an experimental, more than likely you may pay higher insurance. Okay, that's one of the costs that you think about down the line. So because it's an experimental, which your insurance company is going to look at safety records, they're also going to look at parts. Like, are the parts readily available? If parts are not readily available, that may affect your insurance rate, but also your status as a pilot will affect your insurance rate. So when it comes to insurance, I think that you may pay slightly more for an experimental, but you may be able to save money if you reduce your hull value. So hull value is basically, what is this airplane worth? So say, for example, you build an airplane that costs $100,000. and you decide to have a haul value of $70,000 to save on your insurance, you can do that. The downside obviously is, God forbid, if something happens, the value that the insurance is going to give you is 70,000 instead of 100,000. But more than likely, if you go the experimental route, you may pay more in insurance. Now, maintenance. There is a bigger advantage in maintenance or maintaining an experimental airplane as compared to a certified airplane. With certified, you have to go through an AP mechanic, and you can be an AP mechanic yourself. And I also encourage you to go through a professional also for your experimental airplane. But the good thing with experimental is part of the process is you're building the airplane. You will know more about your aircraft than the average pilot who is buying a factory built airplane. So, and part of that is knowing when things happen and how to go about fixing them. But also, instead of a part, say this is a piston or something, this can cost $5,000 if it's a certified airplane. Whereas an experimental, you can pay $500 for it. So parts and labor, you're gonna save money there when it comes to maintaining the airplane. But also, you can also do a lot of the maintenance work yourself. Attend the workshops as part of your build process, and you'll be able to do a lot of the mechanical work rather than giving it to an AP mechanic. Now, obviously, different individuals and timing will matter, but you save money on maintenance, but not so much on insurance when it comes to experimental. Edmund, am I a mechanic? No, but I am mechanically inclined. Let's see. Igor asks, how is the Sling TSi energy characteristics? Have you flown 4 people on board? How much is 75%? So Igor from Russia, I would just encourage you to go see the actual flight video on this channel for the TSi. Basically answers all of your questions. On the day I flew it, it was 3 of us in the airplane. Actually, no. Was it 3 or 4 of us? No, it was 3 of us. So it was me, Wayne, and Jean, and we had some baggage. We had snowboards in the back. So you can say that we filled it up to the max. And that airplane picked up and moved like it was just me in there. So, and the speeds given, we did see some quartering tailwind during our cruise, but we were seeing close to 200 miles per hour on cruise for that day. So, but I would encourage you to go see that video. As a matter of fact, I may leave it in the link of this video once I'm done. Okay, so I hope that answers your question. Oh, and sorry, you said, what is 75% IAS? 75% is basically your power setting. So instead of having full power at 100%, you bring it down to 75% to save on your fuel consumption. IAS simply means your indicated airspeed. That's what you're looking at on your screen. That's telling you, okay, this is how fast you're going. That's what IAS stand for. Boom, boom, boom. Alexis, what is the total price on a Sling TSi that you buy? How much will your monthly payments be? Honestly, you would have to talk to a lender, maybe at AOPA. As a matter of fact, I think if you reach out to Barry at TAF, he'll be able to answer that question more precisely. But I know that the Sling TSi with an IFR, with IFR instruments in it, the value is going to be between $230,000 and $250,000. Now, when you borrow money to fund an experimental airplane, I believe you're gonna be lending money to get the kits and the components. I don't know if you're gonna be getting money to buy the entire airplane, except maybe you have one that's ready built and somebody is selling it to you, then you can borrow money. But I would say you should talk to a lender at AOPA, or just talk to Barry at the airplane factory, and he'll be able to answer that question better. VVTV says, am I building myself? I already covered. So I'm building myself as part of the process, but really I'm going through a build assist where I would have the tools and the space to be able to build one out, and the guidance to be able to build one out. Oh, good. Everton answered it. Thank you. Let's see if any other questions. Question. Vienna Auto Center. What is a PPL? PPL stands for Private Pilot License. Well, tech guy, you're helping me out here. Okay, so it looks like all of tech guy is helping me answer most of the questions. Tim Tully. Yes. So it's, Tim is mentioning that Sling fully equipped built by the airplane factory will run about $273,000. That's about close to what the cost would be. That's if you don't want to touch anything and you basically hire the company to build an airplane for you. That's about how much you're going to be looking at. Now, if you all don't have any more questions for me, I think we're going to call this one a good run. And I hope I covered as much for you guys. Again, people email me or send me messages on Instagram asking some of these questions. So I hope I covered a lot of it for everyone. But please do leave more questions in the comments if I didn't cover something that you wanted answered. Or just email me as well, mike@mojogrip.net. And as the build moves along, I will update you guys on how things are moving. Again, if you weren't here for my last live video, the update on the build is that I've ordered the kit, and it should be here hopefully by mid-October or maybe end of October. So the process, the kit is shipping from South Africa, and once it gets here, it will go through customs and whatnot. But you will know as soon as I know, and then once that happens, we'll start filming and get to the build. Okay, guys, so that is it for me. And please, once again, if you have not supported the project, I have the GoFundMe link in the description of this live video. Another way you can support the build project is through mojogrip.net. Become an MVP there, and with that you actually get more benefits. The videos on there that you don't see on YouTube, and I plan to continue doing that. But the best way you can help right now is help through the GoFundMe campaign. The sooner I don't know how much we're gonna have by the end of October, but right now the good news is we've been able to raise about 10% of the goal. But the sooner we get to the goal, the better. And that way we can fund a bunch of the filming stuff and also the build assist program. And I really do appreciate everyone who is contributing through the campaign, and also everyone who's watching, man. If you're watching these videos, if you're watching and sharing, I greatly appreciate it, honestly, from the bottom of my heart. So thank you guys so much. You keep me making these videos, okay? So again, I'm gonna make a more concise video explaining these numbers, and I'll upload that in a future time. And in the meantime, I've got more interviews. So if you notice, I put a lot of interview videos up this past week. So I've got a bit more of those, and I know that it's not the typical video that you see on MojoGrip, but I'm fascinated by airplanes and I love reviewing them. But what I found out in all of my trips going around talking to people is I love to hear other people's story as well, because believe it or not, my pilot journey story was what started this channel to begin with. So I wanted to share some of that with you guys. So watch those videos, share them, and I will catch you all on a feature video. All right, take care. Hope you enjoy the rest of your weekend, and signing out. Check with you guys later. Peace.